What makes a city, more than just a place on a map? How does it become this living thing that just captivates people for centuries?
Yeah, like Paris.
Exactly, Paris.
Yeah.
This is the city of light, right? Fashion, romance, history, it's got it all. But what if you could sort of peel back all that iconic imagery?
Yeah.
Get to the real story underneath.
Well, that's what we're doing in this deep dive. We're going to take you through Paris's really astonishing evolution.
Right.
Forget just the surface stuff. We're digging for those surprising bits, connecting the dots from, like, its ancient origins right up to the future. Why does the city really stand apart? You might have some real aha moments here.
Definitely. We've got this great source, a brief history of Paris, and some other research, too.
Yeah.
Our mission. Basically distill it all, give you a shortcut to being genuinely clued in about one of the world's most fascinating cities.
With some surprising facts, hopefully a bit of humor.
Exactly. Keep you hooked. So let's start at the beginning. Most people picture, the Eiffel Tower, grand boulevards.
Notre Dame, maybe?
Right. But it wasn't always like that. It started way smaller, didn't it?
Oh, much smaller. Long before it was Paris, it was actually a Gallic settlement called Lutetia.
Lutetia. That
Yeah.
sounds different. So how far back are we talking? Like, really far?
Astonishingly far back. The earliest human traces, they go back maybe 400,000 years in the Paris Basin.
Wow.
Yeah, they found artifacts like the cranium of a man back in 1859. It's in the Museum of Natural History.
Wow.
Then fast forward quite a bit, you get the first Indo-European tribes, the Celts, around 900 BC. And this one tribe, the Amino-Contes, settled on the Ile de la Cité.
The island where Notre Dame is.
Precisely there. Yeah, they were known for river trade.
So that little island was the start of it all, what made it so important, even back then. And didn't Caesar write about it?
He did. And it's fascinating how early its strategic value was recognized. It's an island defensible right at a river crossroads.
Makes sense.
So Julius Caesar gives us the first written description, 52 BC. He calls Lutetia a thriving city, a fortress and trading post. Even gives dimensions 640 paces long and 400 paces wide.
So not just some tiny village then, already a hub.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Military commercial value. And then the Romans came along.
Ah, the Romans. Builders, right. So they must have changed things significantly.
Oh, absolutely. They left a huge mark. There's evidence of a wooden wharf way back 4200 BC, but the Romans really developed it. By 50 BC, they built a stone wall.
And parts still exist.
Incredibly, yeah. And they added the usual Roman stuff, thermal baths, temples. That solidified its identity as Lutetia, though eventually the name Paris started being used too, and, well, it stuck.
So jumping ahead to medieval times, how does it go from Roman outpost to, the center of French power?
Well, by the 11th century, Paris was getting much more important, becoming an independent city.
Paris.
But the real game changer was Philip Augustus, early 12th century. Ruled for like 80 years.
80 years, wow.
Yeah. And he made Paris the official capital of France. And he backed it up, built this huge wall around it, fortified it, made a real statement.
And architecture-wise,
Yeah.
this is when we start seeing those iconic cathedrals.
This is absolutely the time. Cathedral building really kicks off in the 11th century. Notre Dame started in the 1100s. Philip Augustus enhanced it later.
Right, Notre Dame.
But there's another one, maybe less famous, but stunning, La Sainte-Chapelle.
Right, yeah.
Built 1241 by St. Louis. It was meant to house the crown of thorns. The stained glass is just unbelievable. A masterpiece of medieval art.
This Philip Augustus guy seems like he was busy. Did he focus on the economy too?
He absolutely did. Smart ruler. He set up these big trade fairs.
Boosting commerce.
Exactly. Give the city a huge economic boost.
Yeah.
So by the 14th century, Paris is really flourishing. New palaces, markets, architecture getting grander. A real period of growth.
But the 14th century wasn't all smooth sailing, was it?
Yeah.
Weren't there major challenges?
Definitely not smooth sailing. You get the 100 Years' War starting around 1291. And that hammered Paris's wool trade.
Which was important.
Critically important. Apparently, it sustained like half the population.
Half. Wow.
Yeah. So the war meant serious economic hardship, growing unrest. The sources talk about war cries, alarms. You get this sense of a city under real strain, deep societal fatigue. Shows how vulnerable even a big city can be.
Okay, so let's jump forward again. The Renaissance. Paris seems to get a whole new kind of energy then.
It does. It's described as a time of exuberance and energy. There's this cool blend of the old medieval designs with the new material local limestone.
Ah, giving it a different look.
Yeah, more refined, more artistic maybe, moving away from just purely defensive stuff.
And the Italian influence. You can't really talk Renaissance France without the Medici, right?
Spot on. The Medici connection was huge. Francois first comes to the throne in 1515, and he really embraces Italian Renaissance humanism.
Okay.
The Florentine Medici family, they influence everything, art, architecture, even just customs, how people behaved.
Any specific examples?
Get this. 6 Michelangelo sculptures were shipped to Paris for the marriage of Henry II and Catherine de' Medici in 1548.
Michelangelo's sculptures, wow. That's serious cultural import.
Totally. A real blend of French ambition and Italian style.
But even with all that Renaissance flair, the seeds of revolution were being sown, weren't they? How did Louis XIV and Versailles play into that?
Well, by the late 18th century, you have the incredible extravagance of Louis XIV's court out at Versailles.
Right, miles away from the city center.
Exactly. And it created this huge disconnect, this perception that the monarchy just didn't understand or care about ordinary Parisians struggling in the city. That fueled a lot of resentment. The pressure was definitely building.
And it all boils over with the Bastille, July 14, 1789. Why was that specific event so symbolic?
It was absolutely a pivotal moment. The Bastille wasn't just a prison. It had been around since 1370. It became this powerful symbol of the monarchy's, arbitrary cruelty.
So a symbol of oppression.
Exactly. And Parisians were afraid the king was going to disarm them, so they stormed it, looking for weapons.
Did they find much?
Militarily, maybe not a huge deal, but symbolically, massive. Its fall basically ignited the French Revolution and gave us symbols we still know, the Marseillaise, the cockade.
The things that still define France today.
Absolutely. But the revolution got much darker after that, didn't it?
Yeah, the Reign of Terror. That sounds brutal.
It was incredibly brutal. The revolution just intensified, fueled by paranoia, political extremism. You get the September massacres, 600 political prisoners just slaughtered.
Horrific.
And then the guillotine, set up right in the Place de la Révolution, became this chilling machine for systematic executions, Marie Antoinette among them.
It's hard to imagine the fear and tension in the city then.
Really makes you think about how a city recovers from that kind of internal violence. Okay, let's move into the 19th century. Paris needed another big change, but for different reasons. What was the city like around 1850?
By 1850, it's huge. Europe's biggest city, 1.8 million people.
But overcrowded, massively. And the layout was, well, a mess. Described as a haphazard maze of winding, dangerous alleys. Very few wide streets, only 18% were wider than 10 meters.
So problems with sanitation, traffic, probably crime too.
All of the above, plus public order. It was just unsustainable. Something radical had to happen.
Enter Baron Haussmann. His renovation project was ambitious, to say the least.
Ambitious is an understatement. Commissioned by Napoleon III, this Parisian project from 1853 to 1870 was the largest macro-scale design project of its kind ever up to that point.
So what did he actually do?
He literally plowed through old neighborhoods, created those wide, straight boulevards we see today, uniform buildings, neoclassical style, new parks too.
Trying to modernize everything.
Exactly, driven by industrialization, urbanization, trying to make the city work better, especially for growing middle class, improve circulation, hygiene. But, it also displaced thousands of people, erased centuries of history on the ground.
A massive trade-off. And then, sort of capping off that era, the Eiffel Tower, which wasn't exactly welcomed with open arms.
Not at all. It's almost funny now. It was built for the 1889 International Exhibition, celebrating 100 years since the Revolution.
Okay.
But this 300-meter tower, Parisians, especially the artistic types, apparently hated it. Called it an exceedingly absurd tower, a grotesque skeleton.
It's hard to imagine Paris without it now. How did it go from grotesque skeleton to beloved icon?
It's quite a story, isn't it? I mean, it was the world's tallest structure for 3 decades. That's impressive in itself.
Sure.
But I think over time, its sheer boldness, its modern form, just its constant presence, it won people over. It became more than just a structure. It became a symbol of French innovation, uniquely Parisian. Sometimes the things that shock us most end up defining us.
That's a great point. Okay, after the World Wars, Paris seems to find a new cultural groove again.
Yeah, it's described as this really interesting mix, chaotically combining classicism and modernism, rationality and surrealism, avant-garde and vulgarism.
A real melting pot of styles.
Totally. Jazz music took over the cafes. Montmartre, even though it was poor, became this incredible hub for artists, cabarets, hugely influential on modern arts. Like the city was processing everything it had been through and channeling it into creativity.
So bringing us more up to date, modern Paris, what's its draw now, its global image?
Well, it's still undeniably a top global destination, famous for fashion, obviously.
Yeah.
Food, unbelievable gastronomy, something like 100 Michelin-starred restaurants.
Wow.
And still the city of light. That romantic image persists, drawing millions.
But you mentioned a paradox.
Yeah.
The tourist view versus the reality for people living there.
Mm.
Like the bouquinistes on the Seine, the cafes, that's the dream, but what's the other side?
Right, there's a pretty stark contrast. Behind that beautiful facade, you have what this source calls the toiling masses. People dealing with overwork, stress, really long commutes, often from suburbs far outside the center.
For reality most tourists probably don't see.
Generally not. It highlights this gap between the postcard image and the everyday grind for many Parisians.
Which brings up bigger issues, right? Urbanization, inequality. How is a city like Paris dealing with that?
It's a huge challenge. There's the sense of a loss of the scale of man, the city feeling overwhelming, maybe impersonal, and inequality has really spiked since the mid-'80s, especially around Paris.
How bad has it gotten?
Well, the number of economically vulnerable households jumped massively, from about 230,000 in 1990 to 530,000 in 2020.
That's a huge increase.
It is, and it leads to this idea of two cities, one of rich and one of poor, and associated social problems, sometimes including radicalism, in areas labeled sensitive urban areas, often marginalized suburbs facing tough conditions.
So is Paris just accepting this, or is there a vision for tackling these problems? What about sustainability, technology?
No, they're definitely not just accepting it. There's a real push towards a smart and sustainable future, lots of initiatives.
Like what?
Big focus on greening the city, planting 20,000 trees by 2026, creating rooftop gardens. There's a whole Paris rooftop plan.
Integrating nature back in.
Exactly, and technology-wise, becoming a smart city. Things like citywide Wi-Fi, an open data platform so developers can create apps like for optimizing your commute. It's about using tech to improve daily life.
And looking right ahead, the 2024 Olympics. Paris is using that to showcase its transformation.
Correct.
What's this about 3 new Eiffel Towers? Are they actually building them?
No, not literal towers. It's more symbolic. The Olympics are a stage to show how Paris is changing architecturally and urbanistically.
Okay.
These 3 towers represent concepts: nature, society, and AI. The idea is to bring experts together to, as they put it, curate abundance while maintaining vigilance, basically showing leadership in sustainability, social progress, and tech innovation.
A very 21st century take on a 19th century icon.
Exactly. It's Paris saying, we honor our past, but we're building the future.
So we've covered a huge amount of ground here. From that tiny Gallic settlement, Lutetia, through Roman building, medieval power, revolution, Haussmann's huge changes, right up to today's challenges and future plans. You really see how every single era left its mark.
It's layered, isn't it? But what really stands out to me again and again is just how adaptable Paris is. Its resilience.
Right.
Its history isn't just a straight line. It's full of upheaval, struggle, radical shifts. But often, those really tough periods lead to the most profound transformations. The things that make Paris, well, Paris, it keeps reinventing itself.
Which leads to a final thought, maybe. What does it actually mean for a city to keep reinventing itself like that, but still hold on to its, its soul, its core identity? Paris seems to thrive on paradox, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ancient grandeur, right next to modern struggles. Elegance and everyday grind, tradition sparking innovation. What does that constant tension, that enduring paradox, tell us about what makes a city truly great? And maybe, what does it tell us about ourselves?